Today we are going to talk about a very good bloodline of Patterdale Terriers, namely the bloodline known as Pickaxe, also known as Clint Jones. In my opinion, this is one of the best, if not the best, European bloodline of Patterdales that is currently available, that has wide traction. So of course there could be a breeder that has bred some, but because the Pickaxe FX has been so long already in the game, it's still performing very well, because oftentimes you see that in time the performance decreases of the line, because fame of old age catches up to almost all of us. But the Pickaxe Jones bloodline is still performing very well, and the thing is, these dogs are, in my opinion, still evolving to become even stronger, more grafter type of dogs. So it also depends on what you want. And I say that this Pickaxe line, that's also known as the Jones line, is this important also because if you look at other important European lines, so for example Swapped in Germany, or Boot currently residing in France, they all make use of this Jones blood. So for example Swapped is known to have pure Nuttall dogs, and he started like that. But after a while he also carried quite a lot of pure bones, pure Jones bred blood. And for example, this gives you an example of the dog that you see here. The father's side was all Boot, so Boot shock, and the mother's side was Albus Mia, which was essentially a clothed type of dog with a little bit of infusion of Swaps. And he has Jones blood of the same dog from both sides. So from his father's side, 1/8 was attributed of the total that consists of BSL Estacado, my dog that you see here. So the father was 1/4 the dog, and the mother was 1/8 the dog. But then the father contributes 1/8 and the mother contributes 1/16. So together, in this dog that you see here, BSL Estacado, 3/16, so almost a quarter of the entire genetic makeup consists of this Jones bred dog. And it was known as Tom or Grom. So it was also renamed to a name that sounds familiar. And that gives you some insight of how other very well performing lines are using this blood. And if you look at the lines of Swaps, for example, and these clothes that normally consist only or purely out of Nuttall blood, but also the blood of the dogs they had before sometimes, in case of clothes. That's so much was Nuttall blood, but then they found an out in this Jones blood, you could say that. And also the same with Boot. For example, he used his own line, and he made it over all those years, but he also went out to the Jones blood. But I think it's a little bit more. If you look at the dogs that they are still breeding to, carry his Jones blood. That's a nice thing to see, and also confirms again my opinion that the quality of Jones Pickaxe blood is exceptional. The funny thing for me is that Vin Jones started with a line of black dogs. His Patterdale gang had, over all those years, physical attributes are almost retained, but as I mentioned, they are evolved, in my opinion, to be even better with each generation of line breeding. But the funny thing is that they started all black, and now his pack is consisting completely out of brown dogs, as far as I could see. And that's an interesting thing, but there's also perhaps some reason for concern. Why is that? Because I think that those brown dogs have earned their place. It's not only a physical preference, but those dogs also performed very well to his taste. So they had a lot of the strong dog characteristics of the older Terrier types, as you can imagine. And selecting that color is a very good thing. If those dogs are performing exceptional. But it could also be a drawback. Oftentimes you also find that there are some setbacks. If you get a color out of dilutions, for example the blue dogs often have better visual appeal and are therefore popular, but also their immune system will often be, because they are selected for a color, will demise. But I don't think Jones does this, so that could be a good thing for him, because he selects on performance, and then if the color comes with it, okay, that's a completely different situation. But you can also see times that the dogs that have red nose, for example, that you also see in some dogs is also a dilution, so less pigmentation. This also can lead to more problems. So blue can be a delusion of black. Brown can also be a delusion of black. You see sometimes some of those buckskin colors, you find them very good performance animals oftentimes. In also game dogs or pit bull terriers, for example. That can be kept very pure, and that is not a problem because they're all performance tested. But if you're breeding for a certain color, that community, and a lot of brown Patterdales are produced lately, this could also be a very bad thing, because breeding brown to brown is not a good thing, in my opinion. It would be good to cross out now and then also to an all black dog, how the Patterdale started, or another color. I don't care that much. I think that it should be kept black, preferably, but you also see this in an example that's easier to understand in all Merle colored dogs. So you have different types of Merle as a coloration. Some also call it, for example, patchwork. But if you breed two of that color together, then you often get a lot of troubles, also with the health and blindness, deafness. All kinds of problems can occur. So that's the only thing that I see as a potential setback. Performance testing, I think you can mitigate it to a big degree. I would also select dogs that are not only brown, but I'll still carry, for example, good pigmentation in the nose, so that still have a black nose instead of those red noses that you also often see. Further sign of dilution. Hope you like this